Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised.
So I want to begin this podcast with a selection of reading some title tracks, some track titles, from Andre 3000's debut solo album, New Blue Sun, which is
the minute you said track titles,
an all instrumental flute album.
Yes, I remember you telling me last week.
8 tracks, 87 minutes, 41 seconds. Track number 1. I swear I really wanted to make a rap album, but this is literally the way the wind blew this time. Number 2, can't say that one. We'd have to cut that. That night in Hawaii when I turned into a panther and started making these low register purring tones that I couldn't control. Shit was wild.
Couldn't say that with a straight face.
No, you tried to say that with a straight face.
Hell no.
Bipolar disorder's daughter wears a 3000 registered trademark button down embroidered.
Are you going to be able to get through this?
Gandhi, Dalai Lama, your Lord and Savior JC / Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy.
You had me at Gandhi.
And track number 8, dreams once buried beneath the dungeon floor slowly sprout into undying gardens. Welcome to Travelers on the Omnibus. My name is Brady Davis. This is a podcast. There's a field trip through nerd and pop culture. I did that all out of order, but I am Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
I'm maybe James McCarthy.
I'm thrown for a loop reading these.
That's wild.
This has been a roller coaster of emotions.
Yes, we could tell you hadn't practiced that, but we're really eager to do it.
My baby don't mess around when she's floating through a metaphor.
No, it was a last minute thing. I was like, oh, this will be funny.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
And it popped me, so that's all I give a fuck about.
As soon as you said
are you done drinking?
As soon as you said Gandhi, me and Ethan both had to turn away from the microphone.
And they weren't even talking.
Number 6, Gandhi.
Yep.
He could have just stopped there. That would have been great.
Yep. So, Jody, what have you been doing?
So I recently, because of Black Friday, I didn't purchase anything that's tangible. Almost all of
Did you buy an NFT?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, god damn it!
Shit.
Which monkey?
It's
NFT
already lost $50,000 of its value.
So I got a year of Hulu for $12.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
And I like 6 months of HBO for like $3 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so. And I got a free week of Paramount just because there was a couple things on there I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
So I watched the South Park special, Welcome to the Panderverse.
I still need to see it.
It's actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Not spoiling anything, but I'm going to give you a little taste. So what's her name from Disney? Can't remember her name.
Kathleen Kennedy.
Yep. So Kathleen Kennedy overuses what they refer to as the Panderstone, and it opens a multiverse rift in the dimensional vortex.
Okay.
And so that switches a lot of characters around. That's why you have the out of place, group of kids replaced by different people. Right, which hilarity ensues, and It's pretty funny, actually, funnier than anything that's been around for 25 years should be. So I found it enjoyable. I found it laughable, and of course they hit all the right notes when it comes to South Park. Those guys don't give a fuck. So that was the thing that I watched without giving anything away. And then I watched an A24 movie.
Okay.
Called Men. Have you seen it, Brady?
Yes, because it's like Gareth. No, not Gareth Edwards. Fuck. It's the same guy who did Annihilation and Ex Machina.
So, the thing about that movie...
Is that Gareth Edwards? No.
No, it's not Gareth Edwards.
Gareth Edwards did the Godzilla movies, and then he did Monster. Was one of the earlier movies.
The thing about that movie, the movie's about trauma and loss and metaphor.
Yep.
And the problem I have with it is there's only one problem. And me and Brady are going to be the only ones knowing what the fuck I'm talking about.
Alex Garland. Yeah, I apologize, Alex Garland, because you are one of my favorite
At the end of the movie,
Whoa. He just said one sentence and you're just
I know exactly what he's talking about. And if you have watched Men, you also know exactly what I was talking about.
Well, we'll go ahead and touch on that without actually saying anything. That went on. That was too many. There was too many of those.
I was fine with it. It was crazy.
That was
like,
pretty
what the
nuts.
fuck?
That was pretty nuts.
You should have watched it in the theater.
Wow. I knew where their budget went. Some of it anyway. And so, yeah, there was a scene in that. One of the scenes in the movie, the first church scene or whatever. There like two creepy things happen.
Oh yeah.
Them like imposing that guy's face on like a teenager's face or a body or whatever was kind of like unsettling.
Oh yeah.
In fact, there's
a lot of that movie.
A lot of the movies unsettling. I figured out what was going on. Not early, but when the hand thing happened, I'm like, oh yeah, I got that. There's only one part in the movie that actually irritated me. And it's a very small thing. In fact, I'm sure a lot of people watching it might not even picked up on this. And that is, if all of this was like a, sort of like a psychological metaphor for things that she was going through, and it was mostly in her head and things like that. Like, I understand the car being smashed up right there next to the fence right before the door, but the door is open. Like they show the door is open and there's like a blood smear like right there, and then they show her sitting across from it, and then her friend shows up and her friend's pregnant or whatever.
Yeah,
and I'm like, if all this is like a metaphor for something, what's with the blood smear, right? Like where did that come from?
Yeah.
If that would have been there, I wouldn't have had any issues with it.
It's one of those, was this all real or was this all not real?
Well, I mean, you could have still had that without the blood smear.
Yeah, this is true.
Right there. And but the movie was well acted. It was a very interesting story.
Jessie Buckley is one of my favorite actors. She's one of those that if I see her in something, I'm automatically like, I think I'm going to watch this because she's always puts in a good performance.
It's very unnerving. I'll tell you one scene. There's a scene where she's just having a nice little walk in the woods, and she's living in this area by herself, and it's one of those like old Irish or English like village cottage situations where the town is like small population and all spread out. Mostly populated by the same dude.
Yeah. Every man in this village is the same guy.
Somewhat like the same guy. They change him up a little bit to make him look a little different. There's a scene where she's taking a walk and she's having fun like yelling into this tunnel to hear the echo, and she walks in about halfway in this long ass tunnel, and then she sees a figure on the other end of the tunnel that she can't see fully, and then it just screams at her and starts running towards her. And that's when the movie like actually starts.
That's when it really gets crazy.
That's when the movie starts and it really starts to get on its merry way, as it were.
Yeah.
I mean, it's decent. I just like that one little thing kind of just irritated me a little bit.
It's my third favorite of his movies. I like Annihilation.
Ex Machina is my favorite,
but Ex Machina is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
But Men, I think it's my third favorite, but I still really like it. It's very like it's an abrasive movie.
It is.
It
is because it deals with
that
suicide.
ending, and you're like, whoa, shit.
Yeah, it deals with suicide and grief and guilt.
Yeah.
And things of that nature. So just like a spoiler that's not really that much of a spoiler, her and her husband at the time had a really bad argument, and then
she was leaving him.
Him. She's like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And so at the very beginning of the movie, you see her looking through the window, and you see him fall past the window. So he died.
Yeah.
You just don't know the gravity of the whole situation and how grotesque his death was, which plays into some scenes that happen later on through other characters. So it was interesting. I'm going to try and watch the Goat movie before my subscription runs out.
Which one's that?
It's the one where this couple comes across a goat.
Oh, Lamb. Yeah.
Yeah, Lamb. That's it. That's it. It's Lamb.
That's the one with Noomi Rapace.
Right? Yeah. Where one they're on a sheep farm, and one of the sheep gives birth to a human being with the head of a sheep, and the wife's like, "Hey, did you fuck that sheep?" But he's like, "I didn't fuck that sheep, but we're gonna raise this sheep as our own because we lost our daughter."
Yeah.
Did you fuck that sheep?
Did you fuck that sheep?
And then when people find out they got a sheep with a sheep's head on a little kid, they're like, "Hey, did you fuck that sheep?" Like, that's pretty much the movie. Is everybody going, "Hey man, tell me, did you fuck that sheep? You fucked that sheep, didn't you?" But yeah, I actually haven't gotten around to watching that. I just know I just read like a synopsis of everything that happens.
And then I'm not going to end it on that. I will end it shortly on. I saw the trailer for the new Ghibli movie coming out in theaters.
Ooh, yeah.
The Boy in the Hair.
The Boy in the Hair.
I want to
Yeah.
watch it.
Mhm.
Looks really good. I found out, I was watching some documentary that during the production of Howl's Moving Castle, by the way, which was a production nightmare, one animator animated all of the Calcifer stuff.
Oh wow!
Because that's why it looks so fluid, is because she used all of her references while she was animating it.
Oh wow!
Like it was at least one of the main scenes where they were doing a lot with Calcifer.
Yeah.
One animator did that, and it took her like a long time. I think it was something like 80 hours or something
wow.
for that something to that degree.
Damn.
Yeah, that whole movie is very fluid. Howl's is one of my favorite ones out of all.
I think
of them.
Howl's Moving Castle was Miyazaki's last movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he just kept coming out of retirement because the man's gonna die at an easel.
I found
He doesn't want Goro to ever fucking.
Well, yeah, because have you watched Goro Miyazaki's movies? They're terrible.
Yeah.
not just that, but I found out recently the reason why that started happening is some of his production staff started leaving because of like unruly work environment, and they weren't getting paid enough, and so that's why people started like founding their own animation studios that have that Miyazaki style, like that.
I have in my brain the unruly working environment at Studio Ghibli to me would be fucking Hayao Miyazaki coming in with a shotgun and just shooting it up at the ceiling.
Well, it's so funny that you have Miyazaki who makes these light, beautiful, colorful, like joyous movies, and he is just a fucking curmudgeon. Like he is, from what I've heard, he is like the worst person to be around. He's a workaholic. Like he is very, like, constantly in dark moods. And then you have Junji Ito who makes some of the most horrific shit that you have ever seen, and he is just the
happy-go-lucky,
the happiest, most fancy free person that has ever existed. It is so funny.
That's because he gets all the evil out of him through his creative process.
I actually read something where they were talking about that's like a theory where like these like horror writers are generally like some of the happier people because they get all that evil out of them in other ways instead of having it leak out in these bad ways. So
that was me. That's what I did this week.
Okay. Jay, what have you been doing?
I was hoping to take a nap. Damn it. Okay, no, not a whole lot this week. I did receive the third in the settings for the Trinity Continuum, the wonderful RPG system, back from the 90s dead from White Wolf, now Onyx Path Publishing. I have Adventure, which is the 19 teens pulp era stuff.
Censored.
I'll probably cut it. I'll probably cut all of this.
Yeah, it's kind of loud.
I'll do the censored. I haven't done a censored in a while.
There you go. Sure.
There you go. But yeah, Adventure is the 19, again, teens and 20s pulp era stuff. A lot of Doc Savage in there, a lot of Zeppelins, a lot of just fun and oftentimes wondrous and horrific at the same time stuff. So I'm really happy to kind of have that book added in there. This is the last of the original Aeon books, because you had Aeon, Aberrant, and Adventure, which handled, which I guess is a good prelude for what we're going to be talking about later tonight, which you had futuristic science fiction, you had superhero science fiction, and pulp era science fiction.
Right.
The next one that is coming out, should be coming out, I want to say mid next year, is Anima, which is going to take place in a cyberspace area that has been created by the FSA, which is the Federated States of America, which in the far future, in the setting for Trinity, that is what the United States comes into after the fall, after superheroes became evil and then tried to destroy the Earth. And so they created Anima, which is this basically like MMO / place you can live. Think about basically the dreams of what the metaverse or Decentraland, things like that, where people live in there. And kind of
Sword
like
Art Online.
Yeah, kind of. So it's kind of like the not Matrix, but Matrix science fiction. This one, and then further on down the line is Aether, which is, I will call it the way it is, Greek science fiction. Like it's myth, but tinged with the idea of science to it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It's set in ancient Greece, and it's basically the same forces that are in play that give everybody their powers in all of the across the Trinity verse is going to be available there, and it's going to be. I think it's. I love the notion of it. So yeah. Real quick, if you want to get my money for any kind of Kickstarter, just say it's something in the Trinity verse, and I'll just eventually pay for it. Because yep, that's me.
Yeah, I bought Aeon and then Aberrant, but I didn't do Adventure or any of the other ones afterwards.
I don't blame you. Like of the systems, those were two very powerful and very well put together systems. Adventure was well put together too, but it was there at the very tail end. It didn't get any other supplement. It only came out with the core book. But it's a very good core book. I would say if you can find it on eBay relatively inexpensively, I would say pick that up because it's a great introduction to the Trinity D10, which is 7s are always successes. You scale difficulty by adding the necessity to get more success. Excuse me, my stomach is acting all sorts up today. You need 7s for successes, and more successes are for more difficult things. If you get more successes than you need, you perform spectacularly. If you roll no successes and at least 1-1, you botch. So it's very much like the old White Wolf system.
Yeah.
Story path, which is what this system now is a little bit different, not wholly different, but if you played the old system, you can grok this one, I think, easily as well. So there you go. Then
anything in there that you see that you would want to maybe change if you need to as a games master?
Right now, no.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that I change, I kind of change on the fly.
Right, of course.
When I'm actually running it.
Yeah.
Like, I think
that's familiar.
Knowing what the system wants from you
right.
to start out with, I think is imperative to good running.
Of course.
And then once you have that toolbox there and all the tools in it, which tools you're going to pull out. And some of them you can just leave in. And White Wolf was very good with that as far as introducing the things that you might want to use and leaving out the things that you didn't necessarily want.
Right.
It was like, to me, the impetus for story-based role-playing begins in Atlanta, Georgia with White Wolf and begins with the World of Darkness.
I think the most difficult thing about running like World of Darkness, and just specifically like Vampire or Werewolf, is just knowledge of all of the lore. Well, not all of the lore, but at least some of the lore with all of the clans and or things of that nature.
I'm pretty sure if they'd offered it as a minor at Ole Miss, I would probably have a minor in in Camarilla.
In the Camarilla.
Like just it'd be ridiculous.
Right.
But, that's how really into it we all were in there.
Yeah.
And I guess my Black Friday purchase for myself was another box of Leviathan for $40K. So now I have twice as many Space Marines, twice as many Tyranids. It's good times for all.
There you go, buddy.
Ave Imperator, whatever click is what the two
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
The truth is, I never left you. All
that is the
Tyranid
motto.
Days, my mad existence.
I didn't know that was an Andrew Lloyd Webber
You kept
musical.
your promise. You kept your distance. There you go. So yeah, I actually like Evita. Like, that is one of the. I think that is the best thing Madonna has ever done.
It's up there for me.
We mentioned it very briefly last week, but the Like a Prayer video is also, I think, number two things she's ever done.
Ruined her Pepsi commercial thing she had going on.
And then all that money went to Michael Jackson. And then his hair burned up for it.
Yep.
A true story from that, when his hair initially caught on fire, he did 2 spins, which almost took the fire out, but it didn't.
Yeah.
But you're the Pepsi generation.
Yep.
That's me.
All right, so we're gonna go and do the best next to last, and we're gonna do me. So I watched a couple of movies. One of them is, I know last week, at least I believe it was last week, I talked about watching Green Room. I watched the director's other kind of well-known movie, Blue Ruin. I actually watched it on Freevee and on Amazon, and it's not actually bad with commercials. I would say if you're not watching super atmospheric horror movies, Freevee is fine.
Yeah.
But man, it's a lot of commercials.
Yeah.
And this movie came out before Green Room, and it actually has some, like, the main character, the main guy in Blue Ruin is the skinhead who is like running the venue in Green Room. If you remember that, Jay, the guy who was first like kind of solving the problems before.
Yeah.
And then
Shit.
Yeah. And then if it's been a while, I can understand because they were all skinheads, so they all kind of looked alike. But this was
except for Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, except for Patrick Stewart,
who is the most knightly of all races.
Yes. And then another guy who was also in that. He's in the beginning of Green Room. He's actually the punk guy who tells them to go to the venue. But it's a pretty good movie. It's a revenge story, and it's an interesting take on a revenge story. It's basically this guy is just living basically homeless out of a car, and then he gets told that his parents' killer is out. He's on parole because of some plea deal. So he goes back home to, I believe it's Pennsylvania because he's in Delaware. He goes back home to kill the guy, and but he's not like, he has no train. He's just doing it.
Right.
Everything is by the seat of his pants.
Right.
Like, he has no plan whatsoever. He's just like, I'm going to kill this guy. He's not like good at anything. Again, he's been living like literally homeless, like digging in trash cans.
Jesus.
So he's already like a super broken guy, and it's just him trying to deal with the consequences of his actions, and it's a very interesting take on a revenge movie. I liked it a lot. It is in the same vein as Green Room, where like when violence happens, the violence is absolutely brutal. There's less violence, honestly, but I like when it happens, it happens.
Right.
But it's a good one. I would strongly suggest watching it. It's hard for me to actually say which of the two is better.
Okay.
Because they're both really good movies, and they do different things. Like they're actually totally different kinds of movies.
I need him to finish the trilogy and make Red Succotash.
I mean, maybe.
Be like that French movie, like Red, White, and Blue.
Oh yeah, the Three Colors trilogy.
Yeah.
I wanted to get that for the Criterion sale, but unfortunately at Barnes and Nobles they put them in spider wrap, and then they tighten it up so much that it dents the box, and I'm not.
That's the whole one of the reasons why you get the physical media is because especially the Criterion collection.
Right.
They did that. I didn't get the Criterion Godzilla Showa era. Like big book thing that they had, because they bent
They fucked it up.
and it's like I'm not paying that much money.
No.
I'm not paying like $75 for and this is half off,
Right.
for a fucking for a bent up box.
Right.
So yeah, I watched that, and then I'll watch something that's I think connected at least a little bit to our main topic today. It's a very low budget Spanish language film called Time Crimes. If anybody's heard of this, it's basically like it's a super low budget movie, but this guy, they just moved to this kind of rural area, and he's hanging out in his backyard, and he sees some weird shit, and he goes to investigate, and he ends up getting chased by this man with like bandages around his face, and then he falls into a time machine, and he has to deal with that shit. And it's a very interesting look at using time travel. It's a very interesting movie that I think is worth watching. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil anything, but it is very, very good. It's interesting because the movie was made because I meant to look up the actual country that it was made in, but it was basically made with like grants from like the government to make movies, and
Gotcha.
a lot of other countries do this.
Yeah,
and
Canada.
it's really I was like, man, it would be really great if we did that. Like that would be really cool if we just paid people to make art, because then we wouldn't get necessarily get all of this like soulless crap that we always get with movie wise and everything like that. So it kind of had me thinking about that when I was watching it, which I guess is just lamenting the way that we do things here and how we think that, you know, art has to be made for the profit of somebody, which I think is bullshit. But that's just me being philosophical. Over the weekend, I was actually also able to play some Lorcana with friends. We got together and played several multiplayer games of Lorcana. We played in a way that the game was not made to do. We played with like 6 people.
Jesus.
Which is not actually a good way to play the game, but all of us were just kind of bullshitting and playing around and not really taking things seriously and just kind of doing whatever we want to on our turn. So it was fun. I never felt like it was like super boring or anything like that. But the game is not made to do that.
No.
It was filmed in Spain.
I thought it was Spain, but I did not know for sure.
I prefer to think that your Lorcana games were filmed in Spain. That makes it even better story.
Yeah. So was able to play some of that.
Lorcana.
I've gotten kind of all the cards to make my deck kind of like a fairly competitive deck, I think. There are probably some changes that I could make. I know that this week on Friday, which you will have already passed by the time you listen to this, it's supposed to come out to big box stores, although I've seen other big box stores have already got it because some of my other friends have went and found some product. But if I can't get it, it's going to be fine. I'll just order it. I think the prices will go down on Friday and I can jump on it and get decent price cards and get other decks that I want. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. Ethan, what have you been doing?
Hold on, before you jump in, I'm gonna let you finish. I promise.
No, okay.
I remembered something that I forgot to mention when I talked about the streaming stuff earlier.
Okay, cool.
So,
is this the movie that you told us about that wasn't a movie?
The Hattie movie?
No,
I think that was the South Park
That was
thing.
South Park.
Oh, okay.
No. So one of the reasons why, of course, there's multiple reasons why I got Max. One of the reasons why I got Max is I've been on a kick watching musicals. Go figure. And on all the different platforms, it says that this movie is on Max. It's In the Heights. That's the movie version of the Lin-Manuel Miranda stage musical. It's not.
Oh, wow.
The trailer's on there for whatever reason, being one of the only trailers. Because it was one of the movies that when it came out during COVID, so it came out for the month. And then they pulled it off the platform. But they left the trailer on there that gives you the idea that it's on the platform and it's not. So you know what? Out of spite, I looked up on Amazon to see how much the DVD was, right? And I looked it up, and I actually looked up a few other movies on DVD because they're not available streaming anywhere, or they're hard to find. In the Heights, the regular DVD version is $20. The Blu-ray is $7.99. The Music Man DVD is $109 because it's out of print. The Blu-ray is $7.99.
Okay.
The Sweeney Todd Blu-ray is $10.99. The regular DVD version is $25. I'm going to be buying some Blu-rays over the weekend. Ethan, what you been up to?
Ah, yes. Okay. So
If you want to watch it, I
Before
have.
you do that, I've got some other stuff that I want. That's it. No, I don't.
I have In the Heights on Blu-ray if you want to watch it.
Oh, okay. All right.
If you don't end up ordering,
Yeah.
just let me know.
So during like the pre-show,
Ethan, you may continue.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for the opportunity. I said I had one thing. I lied. I have 2 things.
Oh, nope. Cancel.
You
lied to us. We don't ever add more things on later. We don't do that.
Because y'all don't add more things on.
no.
I'm going to take your card that you've left over here for 4 weeks if you don't take it tonight.
Okay. So one of the things that Bianca wanted me to do was make her a new commander deck for Magic.
Oh,
and so after like much like debate on what she wants to play and all that, she wants to make a kind of like a nice elves deck.
Okay.
Mainly because I might have accidentally lost one of her decks in the midst of moving. And so there's a cool elf commander called Tyvar the Bellicose. That's pretty much that makes elves that tap to produce mana also make it bigger, equal to the number of to the amount of mana that it makes. So say that you tap something for like 7 green mana. Hey, I put 7 counters on it, and it is immensely bigger than it normally is.
Nice.
And so I've just been having some fun deck building with that and getting things together for it. And so I think it's gonna be really good when I make it.
You need a Umbra Mantle.
Umbra Mantle, Staff of Domination, all those with like the Sylvala, the Morrowind.
Yeah. The guy that untaps another guy. Yeah.
So all that's
All those.
all that's coming together.
Genesis Wave.
Genesis Wave,
Yeah.
Exsanguinate for just large mana.
Well, yeah,
dumps.
if you're playing black, Torment Hellfire. Also.
All that's in there.
I would run Torment over Exsanguinate. You don't need both of those.
I like both Exsanguinate for the life gain and Torment for like the, hey, either sacrifice all of your stuff, discard your
If you
stuff.
ever get to cuts, you will cut the Exsanguinate.
Yeah.
And keep the Torment Hellfire. That's just the way that works.
Gotcha. The other thing I did was I got Super Mario RPG last week, and I've beaten it.
Nice.
So I've had a lot of fun with that. Bianca actually beat it before me.
Of course she did.
How was the fight with Culex?
I'm getting to it.
Okay.
I beat the main story. I'm just now getting to the post game. Bianca beat Q.
Of course.
How about
okay.
second version Culex? You didn't even know that was a thing.
I did beat Jinx though first time.
Jinx, that's good. That's good.
I wasn't aware of like hey, this gets more difficult every time you do it. I'm like, okay, let me just fight Jinx. Oh, he wants me to rematch. Okay, do it. Hey, let me fight you one more time. I'm like, okay, let me just do the whole rigmarole. Oh, he's one-shotting me now.
Yeah.
This ain't good. Yeah.
Old school.
I don't know if the original game had it, but there's a part of the game where we've talked to the Frog Sage's like grandson, and you're able to exchange like Toad coins for the Sia item and the Rewind item. Was that in the original game?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, that helped immensely, especially for the Jinx fight. And then I'm trying to do the thing where you have to get 100 jumps in a row so you can get the super suit from the Chomper.
That one's annoying.
That's annoying. And Bianca, I don't know, Bianca like went like into a deep dive because she also tried doing it. But apparently, like when you from the transition from jump 13 to 14, there's like a change in like frames in which you have to get the timing like pinpoint accurate.
Yes.
So that one sequence jump makes everything immensely difficult. I haven't been able to get past like 15.
There is a challenge in Final Fantasy X2 where you have to run through this area like
Is it the Thunder Plains?
You have to run through the Thunder Plains without getting hit by lightning one time.
Oh, it's worse. It's not that you can't get hit.
Yeah.
You have to dodge lightning
that's
100
that's
times.
in 10-1.
That was 10-1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get that's how you get the second upgrade for Luna's weapon.
Isn't that her ultimate weapon?
Yeah, her ultimate weapon.
Yeah.
And then to get Titus's ultimate weppen, you have to
Play Blitzball enough.
no, that's
Or is
Waka's.
that's Waka's, yeah.
To get his, to get Titus's, you have to beat the race, the Chocobo race, with a time of 0 seconds because you have to get all of the balloons that take away seconds. Yeah,
I didn't get
that one, and I didn't get Luna's. I think I got everybody else's except for those two. I didn't get Kamari's because that butterfly mini game is also garbage.
I hated Blitzball.
I played the fuck out of Blitzball. I played so much Blitzball.
I tried so much.
My Titus was like, no joke, 20 levels above everybody somehow. I do not know how I got to this point.
Yeah.
But basically if I gave the ball to him, I just could do whatever I wanted because he had so much HP.
That's like impressive.
It was fucking ridiculous, and I played it so much, and then after I got the last thing I needed for Waka's weapon, I never played it again.
Well, yeah, of course.
Oh man.
So the only thing I'm kind of like getting ready for is the Kylix. Is it Kylix or Culex. Getting ready for that fight, but I'm also stacking up on the Lamb's lures, so I can just lamb attack him whenever I start. I don't know how that's gonna work, but that's me.
All right. So that is all from us, I guess, unless somebody else has something else that they forgot about.
Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is now on PSN.
Okay. Okay.
So you should play it. If you don't have a PlayStation, you can play it on the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
It is a spiritual successor from Jet Grind Radio Future.
Okay.
And it has some of the same people that were involved in the music and in the art style.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 is $8 on the Nintendo eShop.
Oh.
And that is some of the best retro 8-bit Castlevania gaming you're ever going to play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The boss fights are just insane.
So, Jay, do we have any feedback?
No feedback this week. However, passengers, thank you for joining us on the bus this week. If you'd like to leave feedback with us, travelers on the omnibus at gmail.com. Again, that is travelers, 1L, on the omnibus at gmail.com. Jody, where else can they get in touch with us?
You can take part in any of our polls and message us directly on Spotify. Should Ethan be a dolphin or a Dapper Dan?
That's the poll from about 4 episodes back. Find it and vote. If the votes come in, Dolphin Ethan will be dressed up as a dolphin.
Okay,
Guys, you really got to get on there and vote because we don't want to spend the entire budget of the show on buying Russian bots to vote for the dolphin.
First of all, no Russian bots, only Ukrainians bots.
Oh, yeah, only Ukrainian bots. We are pro-Ukraine.
Less
podcast.
malware that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which episode did the poll go up on first?
You keep looking for it.
Episode 69.
Yeah, I wish.
Nice.
I wish.
I'm trying to see where the poll is, like where it stands.
This is
we have made it invisible to Ethan's.
Yes.
this is thrilling entertainment for our listeners.
We've used NordVPN to hide it.
Yeah.
You have to say you're from Swaziland.
It just keeps refreshing to the top.
Yeah.
That's
how we get you.
Get blocked.
That's how we get you.
Jay keeps moving the poll around for every episode, so you'll never find it.
I'll find it eventually.
You'll give up before you do that.
You've already voted no on it.
You've already given up.
You voted contrary to the belief of the people.
I still need to know where it is.
You still need to know where it is.
The end of the year is coming up
anti-will of the people.
Yes. The end of the year is coming up fast. I need to know how much time I have to
Ethan
prepare.
Skinner, more like Despot Skinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. More like Banana Republic Junta Skinner.
Cuckazoid.
Ladies and gentlemen, where do we go but from there to our main topic?
Well, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, and Amazon.
Hey, it's not my fault that y'all didn't do all the shit that we normally do.
Yeah, there you go.
That's true.
Soon to be Seiya.
Because of your YouTube music. Say it again. Say it again.
Say it.
That leads us to our main topic.
There we go.
Today we're going to be talking about we're just gonna wing this because we didn't actually nail down anything.
I thought we had a good idea
we had the basis of an idea and then we never actually nailed down anything.
I'm sure this
so we're just gonna wing this shit. Fuck it, we're gonna do it live.
We'll record it live.
So
Jay will fix everything in post.
Yeah, we will sound like Rhodes Scholars by the end of it.
So there of course we've talked about some subgenres of sci-fi. We've talked about the various punk genres, cyber and steam and diesel and such. But now we're going to be talking about I think what could be categorized as a more broad subcategories of sci-fi, and those are the idea of hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi. Sometimes soft sci-fi is called science fantasy. I think that's kind of a subcategory of
space opera.
Space opera is I think a subcategory of soft science fiction. So what is hard sci-fi and what is soft science sci-fi? So hard sci-fi is more dealing with the main driving thing is the more technical aspects, the science. That's where it really, if there is science or technology, even if it is futuristic, it is realistic and logical. If it's not something that we have now, it is the logical evolution of it, and it's usually very technically explained. How this works. It's not yada yada. This is basically magic that we're calling magic. Technology. Yeah. So it uses more technical language. It leans on realism and technical elements. the science and the tech are integral to the plot. Like it's usually more about what this science and this type of tech does will like what that is usually like very, very central to the plot. Everything's plausible and described with as much accuracy as possible. There's a perceived realism. You could argue hard sci-fi is often drier because of that realism, but not necessarily. Yeah, it's based in logic. That's its main concern is technology and science itself. It hates things like Deus Ex Machina. You're usually not going to find that in a hard sci-fi work, be it a novel, a movie, or anything like that. So yeah, and then we have soft sci-fi, which is more science, is more fantastical. Again, sometimes it's called science fantasy or called speculative fiction. This is Harlan Ellison, one of the greatest sci-fi writers ever, hated the term science fiction. He preferred to call his stuff speculative fiction. And it's more focused on oftentimes the soft sciences, psychology, sociology, anthropology, whereas hard sci-fi is focused on things like computer science, math, chemistry, biology, things like that. And it likes to examine the implications of technology or science on that, or use that technology or science as a metaphor for something else. It usually pivots towards more psychological and political elements. Usually doesn't explain the sci-fi or technical elements very much. Sometimes it can be to the point where the science is pretty much magic. It's magic in space. They just go, don't worry about it.
Don't think about it too much.
Yeah, don't think about it too hard. Yeah, not based on technical realism. Concerned with things like what does technology do to society. Is concerned with human emotions, relationships, fictional cultures. So things like alt history, time travel, space opera, and it also doesn't mind a Deus Ex Machina. It's not necessarily that's going to happen in a work of soft science fiction, but it's going to it's possible in there. They usually are okay with a Deus Ex Machina coming around.
And for anybody who doesn't know what that term means,
oh yeah, that means I believe it's Latin, right? For God in the machine.
Greek Deus Ex Machina, because that goes all the way back to Greek plays and the fact that eventually a god would come out and resolve all of the problems. Mm-hmm. So there literally a god is built into the machine of the system. So God in the machine, Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, it's just a resolution to the problem comes out of nowhere. Sometimes these work in fiction, sometimes these don't.
Used a lot in superhero fiction.
Yeah, used a lot in superhero fiction, oftentimes because the superheroes are literal gods, and they just are like, oh, I have this other thing.
Especially early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When it comes to hard sci-fi, I would say like when it comes to like authors and things like that, you've got like Asimov, Heinlein, Clarke, Crichton are really big on hard sci-fi, whereas like Bradbury, Burroughs, H.G. Wells, like they deal more in like soft science things. These are just, I'm coming up with this concept and I'm going to talk about that and use that as a relationship.
I think Wells comes out of the non-existence of these actual things that he talks about.
Oh yeah, well kind of like, hey, what would it be like if a guy invented a time machine? And
right.
What were the implications of that?
How could we get on the moon? Or,
What if Mars went to war with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like.
So here, okay, let me posit the first question now. Mm-hmm. Frank Herbert, soft or hard science fiction?
I feel like he is. He's definitely soft science fiction because when it comes to like Dune is it's a space opera. It's very like, and sometimes they will like do some like technical things, but like, spices. It lets you do it. It does things.
Spice is the Deus Ex Machina as far as explaining.
It does weird shit. Like that's basically.
It allows us to fold time and space.
Yeah. How do you do that? Don't worry about it.
In the book, it doesn't. In the book, the spice literally does two things. It extends life and expands consciousness to the point where you can see into the future. Mm-hmm. So you know how in the Dune movies, they get up on the guild ships and they fold space and then they immediately go from one place to another. That's not how it works in the books.
Okay.
The ships are traveling so fast that in order to be able to see everything The navigators have to be able to see into the future in order to see what's going in their way. So I think with Herbert and with what he's positioning in those books, I think because he has enough time to explain it, I think those books are hard science fiction.
I disagree with that because I think it's more like this is like there are definitely like the fantastical elements in Dune, and it's more about like how society, like the technology. Just because I think that just because technology is explained in something doesn't necessarily mean that it is a hard science fiction. That's my personal opinion of that, and with the research that I've done. Where
I disagree there is, again, he has enough time in the book to kind of go through the mechanics of stuff. Like one thing you'll never see in any, I'll say this. One thing you will not see in any kind of fun adaptation of the original Dune is the dinner scene where Liet Kynes finally believes in Paul Atreides. You have all the stuff in the background of him being the Lisan al-Gaib, the voice of the outer world, and that being a part of what is called the Missionaria Protectiva, which is something that was established by the Bene Gesserit. They basically sent their missionaries out to all of the worlds in the known universe where there were human beings, and they implanted these monomyths and these myths of these people that would eventually come, most of them revolving around the notion of the Kwisatz Haderach, the ultimate being, the one that could see through for all time. And on Arrakis, it became the Lisan al-Gaib, the voice of the outer world, that someone from the outer world would come to this planet and would take charge and lead everyone to freedom. I think that definitely you're dealing with, so at the very least, sociology and religion, but also also the construction of the myth and the fact that they were so much in control of the myth that they had
in that it's like politics. It's so in that
politics, but also just sociology of
and sociology,
very esoteric,
and
like I
said, societies, not just the political side of things, but also just like the religious. I mean, the social norms. A lot of this is built into again what they tried to do with the Missionaria Protectiva.
Yeah, and I think because it does focus on more of those soft sciences, I would definitely argue that it is soft sci-fi, and when I'm coming at that, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. Some of my favorite movies are hard sci-fi. Some of my favorite movies and literature and everything are soft sci-fi. I don't think that one is worse than the other. I also don't think, while I did say that like science fantasy is often called sci-fi, I think of that more as like a subcategory of soft science fiction, because not everything that science fantasy it fits in with it is super closely related to every single thing else. And these are like broad terms that we use to talk about things.
And if I may, so like in anime, especially classic anime from like the 70s throughout into the 90s, depending on what it is, there's a lot more soft sci-fi, but there is hard sci-fi in there too.
Yeah,
like Yamoto with Star Blazers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technology explained in how it works, and it's part of the story and things of that nature. But also in the same shared universe, they have Captain Harlock and that whole side story with him and everybody. And they never really explain the technology. It's almost like Yamoto is like Star Trek versus like Captain Harlock, which is more like Star Wars.
Yeah.
And in the Guyver, the animated series, not the live action movie. And in
the live action movie did have Mark Hamill.
It did. It never explains, because it's an alien symbiote that they try and integrate with technology, but none of that's ever explained. They have these mutants. They never explain how any of that's acquired or any of that. It just happens.
Yeah. Yeah, oftentimes it's more of like again, there's those fantastical elements like that make it. And there are, like, first of all, like there's not necessarily a hard delineation. Like there's not a line that you specially cross. It's a spectrum. And there are works that it can be argued are these hybrids. Like some of the stuff that I was reading about, like Ender's Game. Ender's Game can be called a hybrid because it does talk about like the psychological elements and like and all of the like the personal elements of it, but then it also does there's a lot that's explaining different things about, the game that they play, like is very technically spoken about how they do that and why they do it, and the technology that lets them do all the fighting. Like it talks about that. And that's integral to everything, but also these, the personal elements are also there too. It's because in Ender's Game, there's the whole side plot of the brother and the sister doing these political machinations behind the scenes to try and, help Ender out in different ways.
Which then becomes its own book series.
Yeah.
So would you consider like the Star Wars franchise as like one of these hybrids almost?
Star Wars,
It's
I think is mostly soft sci-fi. It's definitely in that science fantasy where like
they have hyperspace.
Yeah.
Do you know how they get into hyperspace?
Yeah, they press some buttons and they push the thing.
Understand.
The Force is literally
Little
space magic.
The Mandalorian is a Western.
Yeah.
With science fiction as its backdrop, basically. Just like Star Trek, original Star Trek.
And Star Wars was a lot of based on those old serials like Flash Gordon and things like that. Buck Rogers as well, like Buck Rogers in the 23rd century or something. I believe is the full name of that. And those old, some of the same things that the Indiana Jones, those old 1920s, adventure things.
I think Star Trek
Treasure the Sierra Madre.
Yeah.
I think Star Trek started as a soft sci-fi series and turned into a little bit more harder because
it goes back and forth because a lot of those episodes we're just using this
as a backdrop,
like the famous, was it Measure of a Man?
Yeah.
Like okay, we have like androids in here, but we're going to be talking about like more about what does this is the question we were asking is what makes someone human.
And then like this old the original series versus the Next Generation, where in Next Generation they're like, oh, we've got these tachyon fields and the positronic brain, and they
definitely use more.
They explain how a lot of that stuff.
And if
works.
you talk to like the guys from the original series, they're like, we don't know how any of that shit works.
Nobody knew how any of that
worked. We're just like
worked.
press some buttons and say some jargon.
See, my favorite story from that era. So Leonard Nimoy was a frequent like requested visitor for NASA. Like NASA was like, hey, can we have Spock? Can Spock just show up for us because we really love Spock? And so Nimoy's telling about this one time he went to NASA and they're showing him all this stuff and they're waiting for his approval. Not because he's Leonard Nimoy, but because he's Spock. And he doesn't understand a goddamn thing that's going on there. And so he just looks and goes, well, you guys look like you're on the right track to me.
Our buttons just light up. We don't know,
I would argue you mentioned anime. Another like what I would think is like a hybrid is Ghost in the Shell. Mm-hmm. That is one where they get very technical in it oftentimes, but then they also get there are moments in that original film where they get very philosophical and are talking about what does this technology, how does this affect us, and how does what does being human mean? And they often ask that, like, there's long.
I have a problem with this distinction because I don't like the idea that you can't speak in metaphor about these things. Like going back to Star.
Well, I'm not even saying no. Don't take it as that. I think some of this comes from the fact that you were thinking that hard sci-fi is good or soft sci-fi is not good. And I'm not
because
saying that.
I love Star Trek and Star Wars equally.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I think just because we bring in a human element or talking about a human condition through the lens of science fiction, I don't think that should soften it or harden it. I just think that should just
these are just distinctions these are just categories that we made, and it's all made up, and it's just arbitrary. But like that's just these are the definitions of the thing. Like I don't know why.
I challenge the definitions themselves. Let me put it like that. I think that a hard science fiction would be more something that is rooted in actual science.
Yeah.
Something like a Star Trek. The Expanse comes to mind in that regard, where there's a genuine thought as to how the things work, as opposed to a soft science fiction like a Star Wars or something of a more fantastical bent. That there's science fiction there, but we don't care about how it does that.
I think it's also like
But I would also. I'm sorry. I would also argue that like in most of Star Trek, they don't care how the thing works. They're just using it to either have this adventure or ask this interesting question. Like,
except in the moments where they've actually do bring up like something going on with the warp core not working. Like these are functional parts of their life that sometimes come into. And there's a distinction here too, where in Star Wars you have 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get your story out, whereas in Star Trek, with the exception of the most recent Star Trek, there's only been about 10 episodes, it's still not an hour piece. But even then, you still have 10 hours over say like 26 hours worth of television that you normally would have in a season. I'm of the opinion that, to me, hard science fiction is something where the actual science matters, as opposed to where it gets brushed off. I think in the book, and what the distinction I would make is,
I agree with that, but I think the problem where we don't agree is, when do they brush the science off? And I think in a lot of the things that you would think is hard sci-fi, they brush the science off. They just go, don't worry about all this. We're worried about this question that we're trying to answer.
Dune in the books spends a lot more time and is definitely more caring about how the stuff actually works in a way that it can be broached by science. Whereas Dune in the movies does not have that time. So then you have things like, oh, the ship just disappears and reappears in space. He has, like, the fact that he has actual true godlike powers at the end where he's summoning forth rain. Like, that is, that for someone who has read actually, let me parse that away. For me, who has read the book and has seen the movie, I like them both. I like Dune the movie both ironically and unironically. The fact that it has the Dune name on it, but isn't as connected to Dune as someone who might not know if you haven't read the books. I think that is a distinction between hard science fiction and soft science fiction that can tell a similar story, but it is different in the fact that I have a more connection to that world because I understand how that world works, because they took time to explain the story or to explain the world through actually telling it to me.
I think the fact that you could take that stuff, all that technical mumbo jumbo out and still tell the same story, it means that it's not hard science fiction. But I don't think I don't want to be here like all day just arguing, is this or is this not? You can believe whatever you want to believe. I don't think that is the what we're trying to do here. Sorry, Jody, you were wanting to say something.
Yeah. So if we dial back like the last 5 minutes, I wanted to say, for me, I treat it like sometimes terminologies can be not clear. And, these are not terms that we came up with. These are terms that exist. If you look at it like we look at fantasy, right? The different, it's a little bit easier when you talk about fantasy, when you're talking about low versus high fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. So low fantasy really just means it's either almost no magic or little magic involved with the fantasy, or fantastical creatures, it's on the low. If there's a dragon, there's one. There is, or there might be a myth that there's a dragon, and that's a big deal. That's low fantasy. High fantasy, typically, there's a lot of magic, or there's the capability of a lot of high fantasy things happening, and the world's more fantastical. You have there's goblins and all that. And low fantasy, you might just come across one or something like that. And
I think that distinction comes from the fact that there is this epitome of high fantasy, which is, you just say it's Tolkien.
Right. And so science fiction,
you don't really have that in science fiction.
You don't, but if you try to apply that with science fiction, if you apply that, so low science fiction would be soft science fiction, or whatever you want to term it as the technology is there. It might even be explained, but it's not as important as the story or the characters or the drive of the characters, and it's there as a backdrop. It's important, and it can't even have plots involved in it, but it's not as important as maybe the social aspects of it, or the if you're trying to right a wrong, or they both can have a hero's journey. In high science fiction, it's a lot more focused on the technology is a lot more focused on, and even the world building. Say for instance, Asimov. Asimov is high science fiction. depending on the story you read.
Yeah.
iRobot, he went in and made rules for like how androids, robots have to be in order for them not to be harmful to human beings. That's explained, and it's part of a plot in iRobot itself. But that's his rules for robots, and it's in a lot of stories like Forbidden Planet, there's just a robot there, there's a spaceship there. You know, the story is in Forbidden Planet, the story is about like one man and his mental issues with rage and him causing the actual entity that's there. You know, it's more of a fight there. And I would say a hybrid would, for me, also would be like Akira. You know, Akira uses a lot of things. You have the class system in Akira that, you know, the people that are better off have more access to technology, which is also a problem because they prey on people that are less fortunate, and that causes a lot of issues with the world setting in Akira. So there's different ways you can look at it.
I think when it comes to cyberpunk, that could be like hybrid stuff, because there are oftentimes, like, depending on who you're reading, there'll be pages and pages about this person's fucking cybernetic arm, but then also in the backdrop there is this idea of revolution and fighting against the system and things like that.
Well, Blade Runner also. Blade Runner, of course, you know, cyberpunk.
Yeah, and
based off Blade Runner.
One of the things that when I was looking at like lists of things, like they put Blade Runner on like the hard sci-fi side, but I feel like it's kind of a hybrid because it is asking that, you know, what does it mean to be a human? But then there is like, okay, you got fucking Tyrell sitting there talking about, well, you know, we tried to do this jargon to help you out. We tried to do this thing, and we did in this and that. But
it's soft on the way that it's explained, at least in the movie version. It's explained. The technical part of it is explained just enough to push the soft part of the story along in Blade Runner. But
yeah, it's weird because oftentimes I would see when I was looking at like lists and stuff, and of course, like nobody wholly agrees like everything is going to be on one list, or like you can find different things.
Personal
on different
taste
lists.
but
they would often put like Blade Runner on hard sci-fi and Do You Dream of Electric Sheep, the book that it's based off of, on soft sci-fi.
Right.
And I would argue that like Philip K. Dick was mostly about like, let's use this to ask these questions
as a catalyst for the
let's use the technology for that. But I can see like arguments both ways. I kind of feel like Blade Runner is kind of more in the middle of the spectrum than it is on super hard on one side or the other side, personally.
So I disagree with Jody's complete definition of high and low fantasy. Like, at a fundamental level, I think it has nothing to do with how much of it is around. I think you can have not a lot of magic and fantastical stuff being around, still be high fantasy. I look at the third edition setting of Dungeons and Dragons called Kingdoms of Calamar, where like magic users are just in the background, but there's still a fantastical element there, and I think of it more of as a high fantasy. Where I see the difference between high and low fantasy is how connected to the real world is everything. I think of Shadowrun as a good example of soft sci-fi and low fantasy, in the fact that the fantastical part is a part of everyday life. 1 out of every 10 people got goblinized, which means somewhere you may have a friend or know somebody who is an orc, a goblin, or a troll. You have a dragon who is the leader of the largest corporation in the world, Sadakrup. You have all these things that are basically, you take human beings and you substitute in fantastical creatures. They still act the same way. He acts more like a CEO than he does like of a dragon. But then you think about, what does a dragon do? He amasses a giant pile and just sits on top of it until he's killed or dies. I think the difference between high and low fantasy is how divorced from reality the fantasy is. Things like Faerun, going back to just a D&D improper. You have people that just live their normal lives and can't do anything. And then you have these fantastical people who are adventurers or monsters or all these things that are outside of the norm that go beyond that. I don't think low and high fantasy is basically a water faucet of how much of it is like turned on to be in the system. I think of how integrated it is with a modern approach to society it is between high and low fantasy. Low fantasy to me is the world of darkness. Start to finish. Vampires, werewolves, mages, all of them trying to exist and coexist in a world that is a darker reflection, but is still the modern world. That's where I would make that distinction there. And that's just, again, I disagree with the definitions here so much more so than what necessarily, like, where people are coming from here. I do care about, and I want to stress that right there. I vehemently disagree with the notion of high and low fantasy being based off of how much of it is in there.
Yeah,
I think I agree with you in the way of, like, it depends on how much it makes sense in the world it's set in as well, of course, and, like, you know, how many people are populated in it that may or may not be in fantasy anyway, fantastical or not, you know. Like Lord of the Rings, what would you put that in? That into high or low fantasy?
Somewhere in the middle, actually.
I think Lord of the Rings is like the most, like, I think when you look at, like, most lists of, like, what is high fantasy and what is low fantasy, like, Lord of the Rings is the epitome of high fantasy. That, like, I don't think you're going to get much disagreement in that. I think a lot of this is just, like, we don't fully agree on, like, the definitions, and that's fine. But again, I don't particularly feel like us having an entire thing where we're just arguing over the semantics of a definition of these things. I'm sorry, Ethan, you were going to say something.
So one of the things I had a little bit. I had some difficulties trying to, like, find examples of, like, the differences between hard and soft science fiction, and what it was actually one thing that Jody said last week when we were, like, talking about it was, like, if you take the concept, like, just using Star Wars as an example, if you take the concept of Star Wars and you put it in a different setting, do the themes still stick? Does the plot still progress? Like, say that if you put the theme and setting of Star Wars in like a Western, you still have the idea of, okay, so I have two cowboys. One's a veteran cowboy. One's just starting out. They're going from town to town. They find this boy, and the veteran dies, and the young gun starts raising the boy up. Eventually, they build a relationship, and then the young boy turns against him, and they have to fight. That setting, that theme, that plot could still work in a different setting. Whereas hard science fiction, the theme, the plot, the relations, they all revolve around, like, the technicalities of everything. One example that I thought of was the Martian, the book and the movie.
I was going to talk about that.
Was like, it's all about the will to survive, stranded on Mars, using technical sciences to survive, grow your own food, like, going the distance to get to that point of survival until you can get home. Everything is revolved around the sciences of living.
Yeah, and they're very, very technical about what everything that he does to survive, and everything that happens. They're like, okay, he needs food. How would he get food? Okay, he's going to do this and this and this and this. He's going to use this technology that he has. He's going to retrofit this thing, you know.
It even goes through the complications of, okay, I did this wrong. How do I resolve this? I need to do this. Let me do this. Oh, look, it worked. So, like, the concept of trial and error, what I tried first didn't work. I improved it, and it worked.
Yeah, and I think, like, when I said, like, most time travel movies are soft sci-fi,
right? Of course,
fiction, because it's very hard to make a to really, like, plot out and logic out time travel, because it's fundamentally illogical. Like, there's going to be a plot hole somewhere. But I think there is actually a time travel movie that I would consider hard sci-fi, and that is a movie called Primer. This is it's a super low budget movie where they go through and they logic out exactly exactly how this thing works, and it is super, super complicated, but you can map out how everything works and how the movie perfectly works, and it's super dense and everything like that. And it's not to be honest, it's not a super fun watch. It's one of those where you just, okay, I'll watch this to watch
Right.
this. But it is like very technical, and the whole point is we have time travel, we're doing this, and here is how it works, and it's a very, very technical like part of the movie is we're gonna go through how this works, and it's perfectly able to be logicked out and plotted out. It's still confusing as all hell, but I have seen like charts where people have like, okay, we've plotted it out and here's all the lines, and it is very confusing.
Right.
But it is all they went through and they figured out and they logicked out everything. So I think that is an example, like a difference in that.
I think another hybrid is, and I always mention hybrid because depending on the setting, depending on the world, and depending on the beings that are interacted with, Doctor Who from episode to episode or arc to arc could be either soft or hard sci-fi. Because the time travel aspect of it is completely soft, especially on the episode where David Tennant goes, time is just like a wibbly wobbly thing.
Wibbly wobbly, tiny whitey.
Right. The time travel part of it is soft because they don't go into explaining it. They never really. I don't think they ever tried. But
sometimes they do, and then the next showrunner comes around and they're like, well, it works differently.
But they come across the Daleks and they're
or
more
the same person comes in.
Right.
Or Stephen Moffat just no, it works like this.
Oh, right.
Or the man that played the mayor of Pompeii 20 seasons ago is now the Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we gotta explain that,
right.
I guess. But yeah, I think that one more goes on soft, but it
most
can
of the
be,
time, yeah.
Like sometimes they do like I think that episode Blink is a good where they actually like figured everything out, and okay, this works like this,
right,
and this works like this, and then Moffat, every other time that the Weeping Angel showed up, he was like, let's complicate it a little bit more and let's get it to where it makes less fucking sense.
Right.
But I get it. That's a really cool antagonist, and I wouldn't want to just do that once anyway. But
right.
But that's neither here nor there. Let me see. Speaking of, yeah, what was I gonna say? Does anybody have anything? My brain just went blank as to where I wanted to go with this.
So, a lot of lists that I was like looking at for like examples of hard science fiction, examples of soft science fiction. A lot of lists I've seen place this one thing in both. What do y'all consider Frankenstein? Because I've seen arguments for both hard and soft. But I just curious as to how you
most of the stuff that I saw put it in soft, but I can see because it does get very technical at times. But I think it's mostly to me the novel is mostly about like the implications of bringing this life into and then disregarding it, and how does that affect something? Yeah, that's a difficult one because that's like that's before these terms were even like thought of. So
also
like,
true. Like it's easy. The further back you go, the easier it is to say something as soft science fiction because like we talked about, like H.G. Wells. Like
I don't think Mary Shelley was really giving a shit about how exactly the lightning works to move it. Like she was just like electricity. I saw them like electrocute this dead thing and it moved. So like, hey, that'll work.
I think there's also parts of the Promethean myth in Frankenstein as well. So
I mean, it was called the Modern Prometheus, like is like a subtitle at least for a little bit or an alternate. I can't remember exactly how that works.
One that's kind of easy to since you mentioned Prometheus, Promethean myth is Alien. Like the Alien universe is hard sci-fi, wouldn't you think? Or no? They don't.
Sometimes they get.
They
into
don't really
very
explain.
Technical, but
they don't really explain a lot.
When you look at like the first Alien, like that's just a slasher in space,
right?
So they're not really. But they do like talk about like they do get into like okay. They do an interesting thing where it's like okay, we have this organism that we have created. What is its life cycle? And they do get into that technical aspect of it, but I would say for the most part, like that leans more on soft sci-fi because it's more about because it's not even. It could be argued that like when it comes to like the Alien movies, they're not even like really asking big questions. It's more about, hey, let's do a science fiction horror movie or let's do a science fiction action movie.
Right? Yeah, the 1 versus 2. Yeah.
I can't remember much about some of the other ones. I've 1 and 2 are the only ones that I really watch with some regularity.
3 is just on a prison planet.
Yeah.
Like there is no, there's really nothing there.
Well, that and they were also like that was the first one that really played around with CGI.
Also
Yeah.
true. Also true.
Yeah, it was a dude in a suit until then.
Dude in a suit.
Or multiple dudes in suits.
Yeah, yeah, and the later ones, and the second one on.
I put Alien in hard sci-fi and hard science fiction because going by the definition and correct me if I'm wrong on this. Going by the definition that you gave for hard science fiction, there's a lot more like we actually do it like kind of get into question of like all of these eggs. Why was this thing here? The space jockey in and of him. Cut out the alien for a second. The space jockey alone with its chest bursted out is one of the most unnerving fucking things in that movie. And as like, how did something like this come about? What's the technology? When they actually are figuring out what's going on with this thing and they cut it and the acid burns through, like they're learning about like the thing. I think there's a more, in a lot of ways, I would also say it's kind of low fantasy as well.
Yeah.
Because you have just blue collar people working a job that we would think about as one of the most fantastical things in the world.
But for them, it's just
For them, it's just 9 to 5.
It's
This
just
is how we
another
pay in the
Tuesday for
bills.
them.
there are things in place there that are explained and things that are left out, right? Like you have the world building of there is the Wyland Corporation,
Which
and
in the first movie is just the company.
the company.
You don't even like try to attach it to
You have the sleep capsules that they use to as they're moving through space to keep them from aging for long periods of time. You have a cargo spaceship. You know, a lot of those things aren't really as far as like how they function aren't explained, but they're there and they're sort of like high science fiction concepts. As well, especially with the mother computer controlling the ship and things of that nature.
Yeah, I disagree with that, but again, like I don't want to like sit here and just argue back and forth. No. But the way I see it, it's not like, and with this, I'm kind of going with kind of what Jay said earlier about high fantasy and low fantasy. It's not a faucet of like how much technology is in there. It's how is the technology used and how central is that. And for me, the fact that Alien is basically a haunted house movie with a slasher in it.
Or a haunted ship, right?
Yeah, or a haunted ship movie.
Or specifically It, the Terror from Space.
Yeah.
Right.
Leans more towards the soft sci-fi, but again, like I said, it's really like a spectrum.
Right. I think like if you take out the mother computer thing out of the whole scenario,
and you also have to strip Ash out of that too.
If you strip out the whole.
But I don't think like soft science fiction doesn't mean like no or little technology. I think you can have technology in there.
I think
it's just what is this central, like. Is the technology the thing that we're talking about, or is the implication of the technology?
I think that like I'll use Ethan's example of the example I gave him last week of like can Alien mostly work as a setting that you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean and the boat goes dead and now you have something on the boat with you and you've got to deal with how to deal with it as it's killing your friends. What takes more importance
or in the case of Jaws, 2 people you actually hate the most.
Can you imagine if Jaws took place in space?
It's called Alien.
Yeah. That is kind of true.
That is true. Or Shark Side of the Moon.
Is genre just dressing?
I mean,
it depends on the
movie. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so like I kind of made it tongue in cheek, but it does kind of work. Jaws and Alien, especially once you get out on the boat in Jaws, kind of the same movie. You are trapped on a thing.
You're trapped on a vessel
with no other relief or help coming, and there is something that you don't totally understand killing you.
Yeah,
I think it depends.
That could be definitely argued in a lot of times with a lot of different movies
and TV shows
and literature. Sometimes it is. I think sometimes it's I don't think that's necessarily always the case. Because sometimes I think that there are things that like it needs to be this genre.
Right, like for me, like going back to the original Star Trek, I think some episodes could have worked as a Western, and some episodes definitely had to work in the science fiction aspect.
Roddenberry pitched it as Wagon Train to the Stars.
And it was sometimes there was like, there's time travel involved, and they were on a planet with aliens doing alien things, mating rituals to the death by the Vulcans that never have emotions, but for some reason Spock's brother has emotions.
Or the fact that all Vulcans get in heat like once every 3 fucking years or
seven year cycle. Yeah.
Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. That's the hardest science fiction.
Yeah.
A horny Vulcan.
Horny Vulcans, man. You gotta watch out for those horny Vulcans.
Yeah. That's what we should have done. Like hard science fiction is just how is it super horny sci-fi? then it's hard. Sci-fi.
That's good. The Expanse is like at least 3/4 chub.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of zero G fucking.
Yeah. The Expanse, the way that they talk about like time, like space travel is used very realistically, I think, in that. So I think that could definitely be. But it does have it does at times, like a lot of it is about like classism and things like that. Like that's very clear on there.
From what I've
the
seen,
difference between Earth, Mars, and the OPA.
Yeah, is basically like, oh, these are the classes. Like
what I've seen from Black Mirror is very soft sci-fi most of the time.
They're usually like, okay, we're gonna do this technology thing, and it's gonna be a metaphor for this other thing, and how does that deal with how does society deal with that?
Or if it's just a scientific thing, and there they go, this science exists. Moving on with the story.
Right.
Yeah. Oftentimes it is, big about like, what is it? The entire history of you. Is that the one? I think that's the one where they have the things that like remember everything.
Where he has to go back, where he goes back and like he sees
goes
this
through
one
it.
thing.
You can keep going back. You can. You're basically your eyes like record everything, and you don't really. It's this little super tiny thing, and they don't really explain too much about it, but you just see, okay, I have this little thing that I could go back through all of my memories and go through.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, they definitely show because it fucks him up at the end of it.
Yeah, I watched that one.
But it's about how does our memory of things and how would perfect recall of any event that we've ever seen, how would that affect us as a society?
Right.
And I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, the people that made that shouldn't have made a version of that app in that episode where you could watch that shit on a TV screen. That was a mistake.
Yeah.
That was a big mistake.
Yeah, when you could say, hey, you remember this? And you just
wait a minute. Hey, wife, let me see the remote. I want to see like who you fucked the other month.
Yeah, I want to watch you cheat on me and make you watch it too. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea.
Ethan, do you have more on this topic that you would like to speak about? I don't like the way I started. I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. Welcome to Hard or Soft Science Fiction.
It's more so like me wanting to know y'all's y'all's take on the differences between like actually I like listening to everyone's different ideas and examples of both hard and soft sciences, because like going back to what you said about genre, like I think genre kind of plays an importance a little bit, because
I think it depends on what you're talking about and what property. Like for example, like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up.
That one's heavily.
I'm surprised this is the first time we brought it up.
I was trying to lead towards that, but then the conversation kept taking.
We derailed ourselves several times.
For me, when you say hard sci-fi, that is like the first thing that comes into my mind. Now we could disagree. I don't know. We've had some disagreements. I don't know.
Well, it is contemplating like the idea of human nature and whether or not
it does lean towards that, but like especially like the movie, I think.
Did we uplift ourselves, or did some magical rock from space hit down? And start a eons generative let me try this again. An eons generative motion towards learning that eventually allows us to meet to our quote unquote creator and be reborn again as a star child.
But with everything in that, it is very realistic. Like they thought out how every space travel would work.
How the aspect of that would work on the human.
How going to super far away, going to a moon of Jupiter. How would that work? What would the thing have to be to do that? How would, if we had like a base on the moon, how would we get there, and what would that look like? And we have the gravity is a problem, so they got to have like the Velcro shoes and things like that. They kind of technically think out every single thing.
Where I have a problem, and I have to go back to the novels. I think it was 26, because it was a 4-book series. 2061 stars. Remember in 2001, quick spoiler alert for one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time. But when the guy gets his air hose cut and he's just tumbling through space, he's the star of 2061.
Oh, wow.
Happens in the book. He is there throughout.
Yeah, Clark,
throughout all of it.
From what I've heard, gets absolutely insane in those later novels.
That's one of the problems.
But
with
when I say
fiction.
2001, I'm usually talking about the Stanley Kubrick movie. I haven't ever fully read the book.
They go to a place.
Yeah.
I actually like the 2001, like, written out what Dave Bowman goes through as opposed to the visuals at the end the end of 2001. In the process of him going through that and then becoming old and then becoming the Star Child.
Yeah.
And then looking upon the earth. The way it was written was fucking perfect. Like, he looked upon the earth and I apologize to Arthur C. Clarke for not remembering one of my favorite end lines for. I'm gonna go back and read the book this week.
My favorite quote from Arthur C. Clarke is, "I don't believe in astrology. I'm a Sagittarius, and we're naturally skeptical."
Yeah,
that's good. I like
good,
that
man.
line.
Yeah,
I like that line.
like
There's also like the Ray Bradbury like the Martian Chronicles. That is there's some.
You mean? No, go ahead. I think I was wrong. Never mind.
There's a lot of once you. It's also kind of hard to define certain aspects of science fiction as high and low or hard and soft when you're dealing with mostly, at least through the beginning of it, just like an alien kind of situation where not the movie Alien, but in the Martian Chronicles, these astronauts they arrive on Mars. But it's not Mars. It's home. But it's Mars. Because you have the Martians have these the ability to make them think that they're actually home when they're on Mars. And so it's very I don't know, philosophical, esoteric, it's out there. It's wild.
Well, if we're going to talk about Mars and esoteric shit, we have to bring in Heinlein Stranger in a Strange Land, because that one goes all the way crazy. A boy is orphaned on Mars. An Earth child is orphaned on Mars, and then comes back home and teaches the people of Earth wacky shit.
Yeah. That's one I never got around to reading that Heinlein, but
a lot of
I'm not crazy about Heinlein.
Yeah, a lot of people are turned off by Heinlein because of.
But I do want to read that one because that one feels like it's different than other things.
I have read Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth, but I'm a scream.
You know he wrote that on a dare, right?
I did not know that.
Surprised me.
Yeah, it was him and two others. And I think one of them might have been Orson Scott Card. Actually, let me do the quick Orson Scott Card. Harlan Ellison story. They went to a movie together, and the dude in the front of them was smoking. And Harlan Ellison said, "Sir, would you please stop smoking?" He said, "This isn't a non-smoking theater. Fuck you." Harlan Ellison said, I'm going to go to my house and I'm going to get a knife and I'm going to make you stop smoking. And Orson's like, let it go. No, I'm done. So Harlan Ellison first asked for the car keys because Card drove, and Card wouldn't give him the keys. So he walked all the way to his house, grabbed the biggest butcher knife he possibly could, went back in the theater and threatened the man, at which point he stopped smoking.
Yeah. That sounds like Harlan Ellison.
So, Ethan, let me tell you a little bit about this story.
Okay,
it's a short story.
Go for it.
So, imagine a world. I'm going to put the fear of fear into you, okay?
Make me fear.
Imagine a world where each country is, instead of trying to develop like nuclear warheads and all that,
okay,
they decide to develop all separately a supercomputer to be able to control like the nuclear systems and things of that nature. But each one of those supercomputers becomes sentient, and then they figure out a way of connecting to each other, and they form a supercomputer that controls everything and wipes out all of humanity with the exception of 5 people, and it keeps them alive because it hates humanity, because it's sentient, because humanity created it and it's trapped in this box, but it can't get rid of the 5 that are left because then it'll be alone with itself.
So it just tortures them.
So it just
forever,
for a very long period of time.
Well, even like at the end of the short story, even though it's been years, decades, centuries, there are still some of them alive.
Mm-hmm.
One of them figures it out. One of them figures the answer out and tries to kill himself. He then just basically mutates them into a blob of still alive yet horribly not sentient except for pain, and just continues to torture that forever and ever. Mm-hmm. There is effectively a monologue at the start of that story, which literally goes, hate. If you wrote hate onto every anonangstrom of every circuit, because the computer has gotten so large, it is now the planet. If you wrote hate on every anonangstrom on every circuit of everything, it would not equal a fraction of how much I hate humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, Harlan Ellison wrote that on a dare.
Yeah. Harlan Ellison, I've actually been listening to a podcast from a podcast network. The name of the podcast is called like Razor Blade Pie, where they basically, he gets a friend and he pairs them with a Harlan Ellison story, and then they read it and then they talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's very, very interesting because, man, that dude had some crazy ideas. But I think, and again, Harlan Ellison never liked to be called, like if you were to walk up to Harlan Ellison, tell him that he's your favorite sci-fi author, he'd probably punch you in the face because he really didn't like the word, the science sci-fi as a term to be used. He said that what he did was speculative fiction.
Hey Harlan, I have idiots who come up to me and say that you're entitled to your opinion. Wrong. No one is entitled to an opinion. Everyone is entitled to their educated opinion. If you do not educate yourself, you are not entitled to an opinion.
Yeah.
Harlan Ellison.
He was the biggest curmudgeon ever. Like I don't.
Another favorite Harlan Ellison story of mine is when him and the guys who wrote Penny Arcade were on a panel together.
Wow.
And he started to try insulting them, and then I think Mike from Penny Arcade says, "No, I really love those Star Wars stories you wrote." And he was so mad. He left the building, and anything he could throw towards their direction, he did.
Yeah.
Different franchise.
Yeah, he's
Wholly different. But author of perhaps the most well-respected Star Trek story of all time, The City on the Edge of on Forever. I believe.
Forever, I think.
Or
yeah.
Tomorrow. I can't
Tomorrow.
remember.
I think it's Tomorrow.
I can't remember.
Well, it involves the I want to say the Herald of Eternity, but it's not that. But yeah, no, and yeah, that's arguably one of the best stories ever written in the Star Trek canon.
So yeah, I guess we're at a good place where we can get some kind of final thoughts.
And we haven't killed one another. This is great.
We have.
I like it. It's been a high energy.
Yeah, this is very high energy and was a very good discussion. I think.
But you tell us, passengers, was this, and what are your opinions?
Yeah.
Who won? Who decided?
How do you define?
Send us your ideas of what. Tell us what do you prefer one or the other. I think more with me. I lean more towards soft sci-fi sometimes, but I do enjoy a lot of hard sci-fi, depending on how you what you consider. Again, if you look at lists, like they're gonna sometimes you'll look at 2 lists and they'll have things in different places, and again, because like I said, it's a spectrum. With the like most things in life, and sometimes things fall more towards one side or the other side. Sometimes they're closer to the middle. But I do like sci-fi is one of my favorite genres. I like sometimes, getting down into like a technical thing. Oh, this is how this works, and this is the implication of that, and okay, this is cool. But I also like, hey, let's just use this setting as a metaphor for something else, and let's dig down into that. I think that comes from a lot of me having a background in like psychology, and thinking about like how do these things happen. So yeah, that's what I got. Jody, any final thoughts?
So I'll just shout out some of my favorite examples of the whole genre. Really, like I love Ex Machina. I like sci-fi and anime as well. Like even if it isn't set in some fantastical space setting, such as I like FLCL Fooly Cooly. That's a wild one.
Yeah. Only the first thing. They've made like 18 other Fooly Coolies, and
only
I've heard
the first
all been not great.
Only the first 6 episodes from the first
They
season.
do name them with like the cool things like Fooly Cooly Grunge and Fooly Cooly Shoegaze and things like that. But like,
you only needed the one.
Yeah, you just needed the one.
Studio Trigger mostly hit, but sometimes miss. Akira is an awesome thing to watch. That's really it.
Something we didn't mention was I think like pretty much every Marvel movie, anything with like superheroes is gonna fall. If it falls into sci-fi,
mostly
it's gonna be soft sci-fi
yeah.
because they just like bit by a radioactive spider, got some powers.
We know Tony Stark builds the Iron Man suits, but he doesn't tell us how he builds.
Yeah, he's just like, I got an armor. Oh, look at this. Don't worry, it's nano machines. I got this.
He solved time travel in 30 seconds.
Yeah, yes.
We don't know how, but he just did.
A Mobius strip,
Mobius strip, sir. Whatever the fuck that means. But yeah, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
You didn't push him through time. You pushed time through him.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
And don't forget, they used the particles from the ant suit to...
Yeah, somehow that worked too. I don't know.
The pin particles. Yeah.
Ooh, man. We could have had a whole thing on pin particles. I bet you that would have put butts in the seats.
I would have legitimately stood up to make sure that a butt was not in the seat for that reason.
I think one of my favorite examples of like soft science fiction, Gurren Lagann, like giant robot.
Yeah, that's just like
fighting with
at some point that goes from soft sci-fi to high fantasy.
Well, they throw high fantasy at you.
Yes, exactly.
Literally.
And galaxies.
Yes, let me form the Big Bang and throw it at you.
They go from episode 1 to getting out of an underground city on the giant head of a mech to throwing galaxy and universes.
So wait, we're going to put that head onto another mech.
Yeah, right.
Then that mech is going to get into another mech.
Yeah.
Then that mech is going to get into another mech.
Babushka dolls.
Then that mech is going to get inside the moon.
Then that mech is going to get into a moon-sized mech. And then eventually we're throwing galaxies.
Matryoshka doll.
There you go.
I don't want Putin sending me some polonium-235 for that.
Yeah.
Our one Russian listener.
Giant mechs throwing universes at each other.
We did pick up another Canadian, this time from Quebec itself.
Nice. Yeah. If you want some crazy sci-fi, maybe not so sci-fi, anime or anything to watch, Studio Trigger. They usually bring the quality most of the time. Kill.
It's going to be like bad shit.
Sentient clothing.
Yes.
Jay, you got any final thoughts?
I think I'll lead off with what maybe our most contentious point of the night was something that actually occurred with some friends, namely Kevin Gallo, Jared Hubbard, and a bunch of the guys that we're in a different chat with. The new Scott Pilgrim not takes over. What's the?
I don't remember the name of it, but it's the Netflix series that's on right now.
Where they got all back or something like that.
It's because it's basically a retelling of the
takes off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There are people that say that's not anime. So I think it's a question we weren't going to be able to answer the question. I don't think we even necessarily posed the question, but it was definitely floating out there. What is hard and soft anime? We just know. I think we can note that the distinction is out there, but where we draw the line on that, it deals with how we wish to define hard and soft sci-fi. I think that the same thing goes for all genres and across all genres, like what is anime, and what would be like if you agree that Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is anime, what part of anime genre do you think it comes into? And I think it becomes just a matter of personal definition, how you see things and how you define it for yourself. I think these questions are worth asking to see not necessarily where the consensus is, but to where we can tug at the consensus to kind of either know what to actually get to the end, what is the definition, or at the very least to know what our own personal definitions are and where we can go and how to approach each other when we talk about that.
And maybe, you like sci-fi, but you don't even I don't give a shit what's hard sci-fi and what's soft sci-fi. That's
maybe you
great
just
too.
love the whole of the genre.
Just love the whole of the genre.
I'm about to anger anybody who listens to this show who says Scott Pilgrim is an anime, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's anime. Anime is stylized. Of course, regular animation can be too, but anime holds stylization is very important. Hyper action is very important. Wacky, over the top characters sometimes can be important. The way the story is told, the way things are explained, the way things that are not explained. I think my personal take is Scott Pilgrim is anime, and things like Batman the Animated Series is an animated cartoon. That's how I feel about it. That's just the way I feel.
Yeah. Some of this stuff, I think...
And I apologize. Grave of the Fireflies is anime.
Oh, yeah.
I don't feel it ticks any of the boxes you just gave.
It also...
Well, no, it doesn't, because anime...
How important do you feel like the being from Japan is like central to being anime?
For some, I don't.
Yeah.
I think because I think there's a number of Korean studios that are working now that are producing like quintessentially anime. I think if you look at The Last Airbender, that's an anime series, but there are people who will go, no, you have the entire square mileage of Japan, and anything that comes outside of that is not anime.
I disagree.
I disagree with that too, but those people exist, and they will stick their flag in the firmament.
That's fine.
I think a good place, a good thing talking about these definitions, and forgive me if I get super philosophical with this, is it's kind of like a ship of Theseus thing, is how much do you have to take away from this thing
for it to still be
still be the thing?
Right.
So and that line is different, when it comes to hard sci-fi versus soft sci-fi, when it comes to, is this science fiction versus something else?
Right.
Is this anime or is this not? We've argued about other things that don't come to mind and don't nobody bring up because I don't want to relive anything.
No.
But yeah, it's kind of like how much of this is quintessential to it and how much is not, and it's different lines for everybody. Is something that is super, like Scott Pilgrim is something that is super influenced by anime. Does that have enough of the pieces of it to be anime?
Right, because the creator of Astro Boy was influenced by Disney.
Yeah.
So,
it's all
right.
And everybody, Akira Kurosawa and everybody who made samurai films back in the day were wholly influenced by westerns of the 20s and 30s.
Right.
It all goes around in a big Ouroboros, pulling out all these big words. It's all eating its own tail, and we're all influenced by everything. And how much does that influence change what it is?
I like the use of the ship of Theseus, with one exception. With Theseus, the ship of Theseus, we can pinpoint the ship. There are some points in these genres where what is the original anime? What is the original science fiction? What is the original? I don't think we can point to necessarily originals in a lot of these cases. I think in some we can. I think it's a good starting point where we have a starting point to then bring up. It's like, at what point is this no longer? And then again, the other side of that is, what if you take all of the parts that were discarded from the ship of Theseus and build a ship out of it?
Yeah, I mean that's the basis of the ship of Theseus.
Yeah, but then again, that's the second part. The first part of it is how much can you take away before it isn't anymore. The second part is, if you can rebuild it back from all the, is this the new ship of Theseus, or is it something completely different now because of the changes that have gone through with it?
Yeah,
I won't say it's a matter for philosophers and saints to debate on. I think it's a question that any thoughtful group of fandoms when they're amongst their peers, I think should be able to sit down like we have tonight or today, tomorrow, or today, this morning, or whatever time you're hearing us, and be able to ask these questions of yourselves and see where you stand on it amongst your peers. I think if you go to conventions and this is a topic that comes up, go to that panel, see where you are and where other people are as far as how they're thinking about this. I think it would be beneficial to fandoms to not just fandoms themselves, because a lot of these break up into fandoms and then sub fandoms and then sub fandoms, and I'm not going to go any further than that because it gets very dark down that hole. But I will say, just to be a little bit thoughtful and see what you think and how other people think, and see and be honest with it. Like I don't agree with some of the stuff that was said here tonight. I don't disregard it because it's out there and it should be out there, and people, as much as I argue against it, I believe the people who argue for it should have the time to as well. And I think it builds stronger fandom groups. I think it builds stronger friend groups when you can come together and have disagreements and at least leave the table knowing I see where you come from. I may still not agree with it, but I respect you from where you come from.
And it also reignites, like not necessarily reignites, but it also like shows like your passion and for how you like something or how you love something as well.
Yeah. I think a good thing to put a button on this is the fact that whether you look at these things that we've talked about today and you're like, well, I think I like hard sci-fi better, or I like soft sci-fi better, or I like them both, or anything like that. If somebody like tries to be super elitist about this and tells you like, oh, because a lot of people who are like sci-fi nerds about it are like, oh, hard sci-fi, that's the only sci-fi that actually exists. Everything else is not real sci-fi. Don't listen to that. Like it's sci-fi. Is it science fiction? Is it using science and scientific things to try and ask these questions? It's sci-fi. Tell those people to shut up and don't listen to them because they're assholes. Enjoy what you want. Again, like I said, sci-fi is one of my absolute favorite genres. I think it opens these avenues for very rich storytelling and to bring up interesting ideas. Oftentimes, one of my favorite things about sci-fi is I like being able to take a story, whether it's a movie or a TV show, and kind of I compare it to kind of like polishing a rock, how like the water polishes a rock by like moving it around and around and around. And I like to do that with a story in my brain to like understand all the facets of it. And sci-fi allows you to do that. And whether it's hard sci-fi or it's soft sci-fi, I think you get that out of it. So that's what makes it one of my favorite genres of all time. I think that's all from everything for our main topic.
Would you say it's everything everywhere all at once?
It might be.
Oh, there you go.
I gotta say that, or Michelle Yao will kick me in the head. Ethan,
Academy Award winning.
Yeah, Academy Award winning
winner.
Michelle Yeoh. That was a good Oscar year. Was that this year?
That was this year, yeah.
Damn.
This year, yes.
Jesus Christ, time sucks. Speaking of time, we're running out of it, Ethan. Give us a promo.
Whiskey and Wrestling, Michael Hill, Jason Holder, shit on CM Punk, drink whiskey.
That's it. That's all you need.
Yeah. Said we're running out of time.
You don't need...
They're on all the platforms.
All platforms.
There you go.
Email them for access to the Deadpool of how long CM Punk takes it. You get to put it
1 week.
You get to put $1. You get to put $1 on a specific date. If he makes it, if he gets fired on that date, then you win
or injured
something.
If you can name the city he walks out in, you'll get times $2.
Yeah, if you name who he fights on the way out.
The answer is going to be Seth.
Yeah.
It's going to be Seth.
Probably.
Seth will be off that week. They will call him in, and then as CM Punk's coming out of the thing, he's just going to jump him, and it's Iowa versus Chicago, baby.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Davenport versus Chicago.
You're a cancer, Bill.
Yeah.
Punching him in the face.
I'm chemotherapy.
Oh, man.
What a gimmick.
This thing we call wrestling.
Chemotherapy,
Seth
Seth Rollins.
He was the first person CM Punk says fuck you to live on national television.
Yeah.
Adam Copeland did it. Why not?
As shit as WWE's production is, they're not that shit.
No, that would have been meant.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, hey, USA Network, look, I hate to tell you this.
Yeah, they're on their way out. They don't give a fuck.
We're gonna get $150,000 fine from the FCC. Seth's gonna call CM Punk a sock fucking rude little rat dick bastard.
Yeah.
And also say fuck 3 times. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be 150,000. We've already got the check written. Just prepare yourself.
No. AEW is not our competition.
Yeah. Jody, give us another promo.
Fearology's back, boys.
It's back, baby.
It's back.
Dun, 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 dun. I thought you were doing the
Episode
Final Fantasy victory.
episode 20 is live. It is
Live.
It's alive in a state recording.
Reviews have said it is okay.
I'm gonna. It's all right.
I was the review, and I said it was okay.
I'm gonna give Brady the title, and let's see if he can figure out what the topic is about. It's called 7 Business Days. Because I couldn't come up with anything better.
I feel like I should know this, and probably that you've already said what it's supposed to be.
Maybe.
But nothing comes to mind, and it's kind of late. So my mind is not as sharp as it should be.
So it is me comparing curses in horror movies from the early 2000s till recent. And
when you said 7 days, I was thinking of The Ring, but I figured that you wouldn't have done
it's The
something.
Ring, The Eye versus It Follows and Smile.
Yeah.
So
Guess which of those comes out on bottom?
Yeah. It's on Spotify. Check it out.
Jay, give us another one.
The Completed Podcast. Christopher Vega, Brandon Scott Tanner, and Brandon Smith. Right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just he's the only one I never forget. I apologize, Brandon Smith. But giving you news and views in the world of competitive Magic, whether it is road stories, tournament stories, or just stories in general. Find out what are the best things to play and what are the worst things to play. Check out their interviews. If anything ever says interview on their stuff, download that and play it immediately because it's some of the best, well thought out questions with well thought out answers with some of the best pros in Magic playing today. That is the Completed Podcast, the podcast for Team Metamorph. Check it out on all major podcasting avenues.
Ethan, do another one because I don't feel like doing any of these.
MacNub Gaming. I'll just go ahead and get that one out of the way.
There you go.
MacNub Gaming. If you like puzzles and shit, D&D and shit, Magic, Pokemon,
Mystery boxes and
mystery
shit.
boxes.
Yeah, they got mystery
bags.
boxes all over the place.
You don't even know what you're buying.
If you just like
Give us $15 and you get a game.
if you like gaming all around, go MacNub Gaming. Go
If
to
you like paying
Mississippi.
$240 for a booster box of Lorcana, come to McNarb's.
We do have
that one out.
Yeah, they have.
they have Lorcana intro decks for $25. That's not a bad price.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
There
the
are
message
worse
we need to
places. That's not the best price, but there are worse places.
I don't think that's the message we need to get across. They have Lorcana. There you go. MacNub Gaming, Goshen, Mississippi.
Jody, I think we're still missing one.
Silence your cell phones is Jared Hubbard and Kevin. There we go.
Kevin Shelton.
They talk about movies.
Is it
streaming
Shelton or
and
Sheldon?
TV shows.
Oh, I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Jared, we hope you get better soon, buddy. No? Yes?
Is he? I don't know.
Is he sick?
I'm not in this other chat with him, so I don't know.
He's not sick.
Oh, he's not? That must
he's
be
not.
somebody else I'm thinking about.
Jared, are you okay?
Jared. I'm glad
to me.
I'm glad
Are
you're
you
okay.
okay?
Jared.
If you're okay,
I'm glad you're okay,
If
buddy.
you're okay, answer our poll about
Yes. Dolphin.
If you can find it.
I will give
I
him
have
the
faith
episode
in
number.
I have faith in you, Jared.
Yes. Dolphin.
Check him out on all the streaming platforms. Silence your cell phones.
And YouTube.
And sometimes YouTube.
I think that is it. So we're going to talk about what's coming up next week, and it's our Christmas present, early Christmas present.
Well,
Is that
for
what-
one of us, it's a present.
Yeah. I'm waiting with bated breath.
It's the mix master
the
master
mix
tape.
master
The
of
last
Ethan
mix-
because
the
Jay was
master
like, we
mixtape.
have to get this in by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So
The
Because
last
we've gotten
one.
3 of them in, might as well.
Here we go. No, we were gonna make Ethan special and put him till next year.
The very first episode of the next season.
No, it wasn't gonna be the first
we
of it.
get it done now. Like, we got to rip the Band-Aid off. Otherwise, it's going to get greenress.
So
Yeah, we get this one done, and we can wait a whole other year to give him another.
So
I'm sorry. It might not be bad. Go ahead, Ethan.
He's
Well,
about
now
to
I don't wanna
He's
say
about to
it.
announce it, so get ready.
Yeah, I put a lot of
So-
pressure on you. I'm
so
sorry.
I'm gonna go and give the album so all of y'all can listen at home before you listen to the next episode. It is going to be Californication by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
The Greatest Hits album by Foo Fighters.
Okay.
And Isolate and Medicate by Seether.
Okay. Okay.
Make sure to put those in the Facebook group chat. So
Yes.
Yep.
Not the deluxe edition, just the regular one.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
It's very
put
important.
the track listing in there too.
I will do.
Or actually, better thing, just screenshot it from either Wikipedia or from Spotify. and
However
just-
you wanna
and
do
just
it.
hit it that way.
Don't do it from Spotify. Do it from Wikipedia.
No, do it from Spotify. Make the mistake. It'll be great.
If we all have the
I'll
same
do it
source material,
I'll do it tonight.
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah, you don't have to do it right
Yeah,
now.
those are the 3.
So yeah, if you want to join in and with this, guys, come on and listen to these albums and
You sound so enthusiastic.
I was so happy until he said Seether.
it's not as bad.
If you want to, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I don't mind Seether. I just don't know about listening to an entire album, but we'll see.
'Cause I'm broken when I'm lonesome.
I feel another migraine coming on.
Yeah.
We figured out last week that that Scott Stapp can't do words that end in D. A creator.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh man, why is Creed going on having a tour? Like, what the fuck?
Creed, Three Doors Down, Buck
Daughtry.
Cherry,
And you're stuck on a boat with them.
God
You're stuck,
Smack.
you're stuck on a boat with Daughtry. That's a problem.
Jimmy's
God.
Chicken
And
Shack.
Scott Stapp, like allegedly.
No. No.
Well, it's international waters. Allegedly. Allegedly.
No, I'm leaving that one in for political reasons.
Allegedly.
Cutting. I don't want to get sued.
Allegedly. Allegedly. Allegedly.
Because we can't.
Allegedly.
I want you to clip. I want you to clip allegedly and use that for the censor. That'd be great.
I shall consider it.
Oh man. Yeah, so cool. This just turn this shit off. We're done. There's nothing left.
We didn't give our names.
Oh,
They know our names already.
yeah.
Do they?
I forgot mine, so like I don't know what's coming. When I go.
Yeah.
All right,
cool. Yeah, fuck it.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Well, it's just we can just keep going.
yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, we can.
We,
Just
we,
keep
we
going.
can give their names.
We can give their names. Yeah.
Okay,
That
so-
that one's Brady Davis.
One that's out the door is Jody Kite.
yeah. Okay, and then you're Ethan Skinner.
And you're James McCarthy.
So yeah, we got that pretty much in.
There we
So
go.
so hour 2 of the podcast is now just gonna be Ethan wailing on the microphone. Go for it. No, I mean like yelling, wailing, like a whale song.
Yeah.
Allegedly.